Okay, we're here with Charlie Parkhurst, the most famous stagecoach driver of California era. Charlie, tell us about yourself and a little about your history. How'd you come out to California?
Well, I started out in Rhode Island, or New Hampshire actually. I'm an orphan. I was abandoned by my parents and don't know what for, but grew up in an orphanage, and about age 12 I decided I'd had enough of that. Lit out on my own, and I got a job working for Ebenezer Balk at little stables in Rhode Island, and was pretty good with horses.
Pretty good with
horses.
Stable
boy, and so Ebenezer started grooming me to be a driver. So started me out with a team of 2, then 4, then 6, and kind of did driving for high society people, kind of like your stretch limos today. A team of 6 horses, nice matched grays, and driving people. But I met Frank James and Steve Birch one time, and they came out here and started the California stage line, and they asked me to come around and drive for them. So I did. I was driving gold shipments out of the Sierra Nevada. Got held up by Sugarfoot.
Sugarfoot?
Yep, and Black Bart. Black Bart was picking buckshot out of his seat for a while, but Sugarfoot got the drop on me on the first hold-up, and had to hand over the gold. I wasn't ready. I was too busy looking at the road on the curves and the drop-offs and paying attention to where I was going and not what was happening around me. And so I had handed over the gold and told him I'd be ready next time.
I noticed the eye patch. What exactly happened? How'd you get an eye patch?
Well, I was in Redwood City shoeing a horse, and a nail misfired and took out my eye.
So in a blacksmith shop and shooting the horse, huh?
Yeah, and so some folks behind my back will call me One-Eyed Charlie. You know, I don't care what they call me. It doesn't really hurt my feelings none.
Okay.
But
Charlie, there's an interesting fact about you that very few people know. What would you say is the most interesting thing about your? What secret do you have, maybe, that you might want to share with our audience?
Well, I'd say come out to San Juan Bautista sometime. Like on first Saturdays, our June event during the Father's Day weekend each year, and I'll share that secret with you.
Oh, okay. So something that people have to actually come out to San Juan Bautista on a Living History Day and learn about you. So,
that's right. And so I was driving stagecoach out of here from Santa Cruz and San Juan Bautista back and forth, and we sometimes race our horses in. But a lot of people would give up riding one coach to Santa Cruz in order to ride with mine.
Wow.
Had a good rapport with the passengers, and usually had candy, peppermints in my pockets for the kids.
So generous with the kiddies.
But when I went to die and they were preparing me for burial, they were in for a surprise. You come out and I'll tell you what that is. Definitely.
So it's well worth coming out here and checking out what surprise, what secret that Charlie Parkhurst might be able to share with you.
There you go.
So thanks a lot, Charlie.
Thank you.
Enjoy Early History Days.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you for coming out.
Right. So what period are you from?
Well, 1830s.
1830s?
1830s, early 1840s. The character that I represent is based on the Richard Henry Dana, 2 years before the mast.
Right.
And the description that he gives in 2 years before the mast is you can always tell a sailor because he wears a check shirt and white trousers.
And white trousers here?
And what I'm wearing are also an extra layer of trousers, which are called slops.
Slops, huh?
And these are so that I can kneel down on deck, scrub deck, things like that, and I won't wear out my nice trousers.
So you can slop stuff on it and not have to worry about it.
Tar and so forth. And I have my ship's name, the Lark.
The Lark here.
Out of
Boston, Massachusetts.
And the nickname for sailors here in California in the 1830s and 40s were Boston men.
Boston men?
Boston men. Didn't matter where you were from. If you were a sailor on a ship, you were most likely coming out of the East Coast of the United States, so you were a Boston man. So I'm representative of a sailor of the time period of the 1830s and 40s.
Oh, okay. So in terms of what it was like,
right.
It was like how long would it take to get from Boston to Yerba Buena?
If you left Boston, New York, anywhere on the East Coast, and you sailed south along the East Coast of the United States, down across South America, and around the Horn, it would be approximately 6 months.
6 months, wow.
Now, if you caught very favorable winds, you could do it a little quicker, and trying to get around the Horn sometimes could take a month in itself, so it could end up being 7 or even 8 months. But generally about 6 months.
So half a year. So.
Pretty much.
Then you must have smelled a bit when they got to
on the outward leg, coming from the East Coast, they would be carrying trade goods. So they would be having trinkets and trade goods and things like that to bring here.
Right.
Once they arrived off the coast, they had to approach Monterey. They had to have the entire entire inventory itemized, and then they paid 100% tax. So if the value of the cargo was $10,000, they paid $10,000.
Wow.
But they could make far, far, far more than that, because they would sail up and down the coast, trading with the ranchos. The rancho, the owner, the dons would come out and they would say, well, I need a musket, or I need 10 knives, or I need 50 pairs of shoes, or I need this and I need that. And they would place an order. The ship's captains, the supercargos, the traders would take all of those items, gather them all up. The sailors, such as myself, would row them into shore, and in that time period, either they had some hides to trade, or they would go on a giant killing spree called a matanza. And they would kill hundreds of cattle, and those cattle hides would be folded, brought to the beach, and they were called California banknotes, California dollars. And so the ship's captain would figure out how much trade goods that don or rancho got. He would tell them how many hides he would want in trade. The hides would come to the ship, be stacked into the ship. Then they'd be taken down to San Diego or other places, stored, semi-tanned, not well-tanned, salted pretty much. And then, at the end of the long voyage trading up and down the coast, they would go back down to San Diego, and all the sailors would get together and steve them in to the ship. And they would literally fold them into the ships, into the cargo bays.
Wow. Well, you are a wealth of information. Unfortunately, I have
far more than you can use.
Far more than I can use,
okay.
But I love the information, and I think it'll help people to appreciate the olden days of California.
Use a reference of 2 years before the mast. Richard Henry Dana, and it's a description of sailing out and doing the trading, and then steving all the hides.
I've read portions of it. It's fascinating, especially when he goes to Monterey and places that you know
it describes
in Monterey.
And one little tidbit of information: when the ships would sail back to Boston, the hides would be so rank, so nasty, so horrible smelling that you would smell them for a day or more before they actually put into port.
Wow.
The smell was that bad. The stench. But the profits were enormous.
Oh, yeah. Smelly money, huh?
That's it. That's it. Dirty money.
So the blacksmith shop, that was a very important part of a community in the Old West. Why was that?
Well, anything that was made with metal, the blacksmiths did.
So
whether it was,
I told the people I'd be
blacksmiths
back on
were
the
blacksmiths because they worked in iron, but there were also white smiths that worked in non-ferrous metals. They did everything that had to do with metal, anything that had to be made from metal.
yeah.
So you can imagine everything from kitchen utensils and hinges for your house and shoes for your horse and farm implements, anything.
So you're saying people couldn't go to Target and get a new thing; they had to come to here and get it all
From a blacksmith.
fixed up or made.
Yeah. Now many large farming operations or plantations had their own smiths. They had to. So they would train people on their own plantations to be smiths. Anything to do with metal. They put they built wagon wheels, tires, they built implements for the farm, whatever. Cooking utensils, and, those are the most common things.
Kept the society running.
Absolutely. It was a very lucrative profession. It was considered one of the professions. Smiths did very well.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a demand for them. So. Thanks a lot, Rev.
No problem. Take it easy.
We're here with Joe McMahon, and he's going to tell us about the Scottish who came out to California. Joe, what is it about the Scottish? And you're dressed up as in your kilt and
Clan
Scottish
MacLeod.
Clan MacLeod. Same clan as I'm from. So, why did the Scottish come out to California?
Well, back during the gold rush, or the years right around the gold rush, a lot of Irish and Scots came over here because they were so poor. They had nothing. They weren't treated very well. And the Highlands of Scotland and the Irish, of course, were going through the famine. They came to the New World to try to make something of themselves. Most of them came into Nova Scotia. From Nova Scotia, they'd work their way down into New York, Pennsylvania, and then across by boat, most of them, around to San Francisco because of the gold. They came here to make their fortune. Great numbers of Irish and Scots came during the gold rush.
And what did they contribute to California society back in the early days?
You know, most of them were miners. They opened businesses. They became professionals, and they became part of the fabric of California during the years right after the gold rush.
So your family, was it originally from the gold rush period? Or?
Yes. That side of my family came out here. They were called famine Irish because they came in the 1840s, and the Scots were just the poor Scots, the Scots-Irish, who were kicked out of Scotland because of their English landlords, and came here to try to make something of themselves.
Well, some of the Irish who came out here in the Donner Party, the Breens, I believe, still live out here in California,
they sure do.
In San Bernardino County.
They sure do. Yes. There are descendants of the Breens who are all around this area.
Okay. Any other words that may be about the Scottish, Irish, or
well,
history
you
days?
know, there's a lot of Scots here. You can see the way I'm dressed. Everything here comes from Scotland. But the Scots say that they sell more kilts in North America than they do in Scotland.
I wonder why.
There are more Scots in North America than there are in Scotland. And more Irish in North America than there are in Ireland.
Well, I still have to buy my MacLeod clan kilt.
Yeah,
but,
see, this is what it looks like.
So, thanks a lot, Joe.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're meeting two pioneers from what period are you from?
1844.
1844, and how'd you come out to California?
Well, I wanted to pick oxen, but not everyone agreed that oxen were the best choice.
So, what'd you say?
I wanted her to come to California with me. I would first have a seat in my wagon,
a seat?
Springs on that seat for comfort, and in my hands would be fine leather reins going to the bits and the mouths of 6 fine mules, ma'am. Ma'am, oxen are so slow. You go walk all the way to California, you want to ride with me, we'll be to California in half the time, I guarantee it.
Now, how fast do you think you're going to go when there's not much of a trail to follow anyways? You do not want to use mules. We want to stick with our original plan, and we want to use oxen. For starters, we're going to cost more money if we need to use mules. Every one of those mules is going to cost us more to buy.
I think I started something. So, what in terms of oxen, mules, what would be the difference in terms of...
Oh, well.
Well, this is to show that they did argue over what to bring, but the party we tell about did come with 6 oxen, 3 yokes of oxen, and they did survive. They all made it. Not only that, the 50 people that came ended up here with 2 new babies.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that right?
Well, who are we referring to?
Well, we were talking about the Stevens, Townsend, Murphy party that came west in 1844. Of course, they opened the Truckee route, and we're here in San Juan Bautista today, so it's important to know that that route was the same route that the Donner Party sought, and the Breen family, who lived in the Castro Breen adobe across the way, were among that group.
Okay. So the Stevens, Murphy, what was it?
Townsend, Murphy party.
1844, was it?
Well, they left in May of 1844, but they didn't really get to California, at least not all of them, till about the 3rd week of February in 1845.
So they made it over the Sierras pretty easy, but the Donners had a bit of a problem?
Oh, that's not true.
They had a problem too. There was a Moses Schallenberger. In fact, he's so famous they named a school after him, Schallenberger Elementary School and the Schallenberger Road in San Jose.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the Breen family that survived the Donners, the little cabin that Moses guarded 6 wagons through the entire winter, they came along and found that little cabin, and that's how that part of the Donners survived.
Ah.
Yeah.
So it shows just how connected all of these stories in history are, and I think that's part of the hook that gets all of the people that you're seeing today at this event started and going and keeping them interested over the years of learning and
Oh,
research.
let me tell
Uh-oh.
this one. At the Stevens party, when they got to this desert, they didn't know which way to go, and when the guides went off to look different directions, they came back with a real old man. They said he was a Paiute Indian chief, and we called him Chief Truckee.
Truckee.
He guided them to fresh grass and water for their animals. They named Truckee Meadows after him. They named the little Truckee River after him. And they named this little lake Truckee Lake. Of course, the Donners renamed it later.
Okay. Well, Carol, Bruce, thank you so much for sharing about California's early 1840s history.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Nikki. I'm actually the park interpreter here at San Juan Bautista State Park.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, I'm making butter. This is actually from about 1860 through 1910. The people used glass jars. Before that, they would have used either a wooden barrel or even a crockery barrel, and just had a dasher going up and down. This was actually quite a new invention. The dasher is here, and it's going to go side to side.
Oh, okay.
And what we have in here is heavy cream. And it's going to whip. It's going to take about a half hour to make.
A half hour.
Half hour.
So this was a great way before iPods and Wii's for the kids to have a little fun. And
this is what the children would be doing every morning if they wanted butter on their biscuits.
Wow. Okay. It looks really exciting, and for half an hour, you know, it's worth.
I think you should come over and give it a try.
Okay, I'll give you the video camera.
I
and
will trade you.
You take a camera.
I'll do it now. Oops.
Sorry.
Okay.
You'll have to edit that part out.
Oh, no. Okay, this is super exciting, and kiddies, this is better than any video game you could ever imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I've had too much fun, so I'm going to let you go back.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyway, this is an exciting day. You're the interpreter for the park?
Yes.
So, what's great about coming to San Juan Bautista, especially for kids?
Well, what's great about coming to San Juan Bautista is you get to see how life was in early California about 150 years ago. People dressed different. They had different tools. They did things a little differently, but they were still people.
So early days in San Juan Bautista, and
Early
also
days.
living history days, right?
Living History Day.
When's
yeah.
Living History Days? It's every.
First Saturday of every month, and then also Father's Day weekend.
Oh. So it's a lot of fun to bring the kids to Living History Days
Excellent
and
time.
experience the past and the
Yep.
time before high tech.
High tech.
So, hey, thanks so much, and
You're
enjoy
welcome.
your butter when it's done in half an hour.
Well, maybe you should come back and try some then.
I will.
Okay.
So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So what's your name and what you're doing here in Early History Days today?
I'm Ron Holtz, and we're here showing off our sewing machines and telling the history of the sewing machine, teaching people that ready-made clothes weren't until the sewing machine came out.
Oh. And what's your name?
I'm Michelle Holtz, and I'm here to help elaborate a little more on the history. And over on the other side, on the front porch, I've been teaching kids on how to use the hand crank sewing machines.
So back in the 1800s, people didn't have the chance to go to Target or Walmart and buy their own clothes. They had to basically make the clothes or have somebody make it for them. So
Absolutely, they didn't have they couldn't just run down to the local store and buy their clothes. They either made them themselves, tailor made them, or a seamstress made them for them.
And the sewing machine revolutionized clothes making, I guess. Can you maybe tell a little bit about, just briefly, the history of the sewing machine?
Well, briefly, there was many inventors. You can't just say that one person invented it. They all contributed to it. And like a brief history, it started in the 1830s with in France.
Barthélemy Timonier was a French tailor in France that invented the sewing machine. and he was able to construct at least 80 sewing machines and set it up in a factory. But like today, computers and technology replacing people's jobs, the tailors didn't like that. They revolted, set the factory on fire, and destroyed all the machines.
Oh, wow.
So this is kind of like history repeating itself. And over time, there were different inventors that invented different parts on the machine, and it eventually came to a point when they realized that people were trying to make money off of an invention that somebody made, and it caused a patent infringement.
Right. There was a lot of patent wars, a lot of lawsuits. No lawsuits like it until Microsoft. Lawsuits.
Basically, women love this sewing machine because it probably cut down many hours of hand sewing. So.
Well, Mr. Singer made a comment when he was approached to ask if he would like to improve on a sewing machine. His comment was, why would I want to even improve and make a sewing machine that's going to free a woman's hands so she can do more talking?
Oh.
Yes. Mr. Singer was well known for that. In fact, he did not want his name on a sewing machine.
Oh, wow. So
he absolutely did not want anything to do with a sewing machine.
Well, you got some beautiful sewing machines here. Some really ancient. What's your oldest sewing machine?
Wow.
Probably this one right here, the Wheeler Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Which actually has a round bobbin.
Let's see.
Which is this was invented in the 1850s.
Oh.
It was
What's a bobbin? I'm not sure familiar with that.
The bobbin holds the second thread, the bottom thread.
Ah.
Whereas with this one here is actually a chain stitch, which actually only uses one thread instead of two.
Yeah, we kind of have fun with the machine over here because of the chain stitch. It's kind of like opening up a bag of dog food or a flour sack, and you pull the string and it comes undone. And so we kind of kidded around with people that, be careful because your clothes might fall off.
Right.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for enlightening about the sewing machine and early history of machine-made clothes. So,
okay.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
This is what's called Fell's Napa soap. It's a little watered-down version of the old-time soap, but the ladies used to sometimes rub it on here first a little bit. Put the clothing on here like this, rub it a little bit more. I need my grandmother here. And then they would rub up and down like this, and then turn them over and rub them up and down like this. And after they were satisfied that they were clean enough, rinse them off a little bit in there. And I remember my grandmother folding them up and wringing before she put it in the rinse water. When I didn't do them tight enough, my grandmother was ready to wring me into the rinse water. And you rinse it out good. And actually there was 2 or 3 of these rinse waters, but we don't have enough room. And then you put them in here and wring them. And maybe somebody could turn that wringer.
Want to turn the handle?
One of your kids want to do it?
Then you can do it after this.
Want to put your hand on there and turn it.
There you go.
There you go.
Makes the rollers turn.
It's kind of.
Sister knows.
There you go.
It goes. And there goes the water out of it.
And it's.
Keep turning.
Keep turning.
Keep
turning. Is it hard to turn?
Yeah, it is hard to turn, isn't it?
But when you're 5 years old, you're very strong.
Yes,
And
that's
your
true.
sister knows more than you do, and she's waiting to show you how it's really done.
Now,
So
right?
sister can do this now. There's another one. Now you
Now,
guys can try.
you guys try.
Okay.
Wash it. Get your.
So what's your guys' names?
Mila,
and your name?
Kiara.
Tiara? Okay, let's see you wash them.
Yep. Get your soap. You can put your
You
soap
don't
on
need to
the-
push a button on this one.
Yep. This is all done by hand. There you go. Get your soap.
Let's see what this smells like.
It smells better than the old Fell's Napa.
Ooh.
By far, they changed it.
That smells good.
It's made by Dial soap, so now it smells
It
more
doesn't
like
smell like disinfectant anymore.
Oh.
It's no longer got naphthalene.
This was like an all-day affair, wasn't it?
Oh, all day Monday, Blue Monday.
To clean your clothes. I mean, it took.
Yes.
All day.
Was it sort of a social event for women? Did they do it together, or?
Well, the women of the family. No,
Women of
it's
the
every
family
household.
sometimes did, but also sometimes out on the prairies when they were washing, they were by themselves. They were self-sufficient. and it wasn't exactly. But then there were a lot of them that did it as at a social central washing area.
Have fun together. The family that washes their clothes together stays together.
Not really.
There you go.
Very hard work. It's not a great time.
Is this fun?
All day.
Is fun?
Fun? Well,
We're using cold water here, but it would have started early in the morning. The fathers and brothers would have started the fire.
Oh, so they would use warm water.
yeah,
they had to use
my
hot
husband grew up in Mississippi, and he used to build a fire under an iron kettle for his grandmother.
Oh, wow.
It was done outside.
And she would stir the clothes in this boiling
There
pot.
you go. That's it.
Wow.
Wow, you're doing good.
Powerful. Let's try this.
I'm Michael Ostrander from Santa Cruz.
And your name?
Robert Garcia, Salinas.
Hi, Robert. And your name?
Joan Miller.
Hi, Joe. So your period is, what did you say your period was?
1700 to 1840, the fur trade era.
Oh, okay. So what exactly was the fur trade? Why did people come out to California for...
Well, they weren't actually this far into California. They're in the Rocky Mountains trapping beaver, because beaver fur, if you look on a lot of the hat... Robert, can I use your hat for a second? Okay. This is a Stetson hat.
Oh, okay.
And inside the hat, it says John B. Stetson Company, 4X Beaver. And it's beaver felt that was used to make these hats. They would take the hides from the beaver and dehair them and use the fine hair and mix it with the other materials to make the hats. So it was big money.
So beaver
Big
pelt
money.
was very waterproof and kept people's hair or heads dry, I guess. So.
On that aspect, I'm not really sure.
Actually, the beavers, the reason they had waterproofness is because they produce an oil from their skin, and that they would create air pockets just like the sea otters do, and that would create kind of like a waterproofness of their fur and stuff, which even after you cure it and stuff, still remains that waterproofness because the oil has been worked into it over, whatever the lifetime of the beaver.
Wow. So the mountain men came out to the Rockies originally, but I guess they explored a little further out west and.
Oh yeah, there was people that traveled on out. I mean, when Lewis and Clark came through, there's a lot of mountain men who traveled with them.
Oh wow.
And they had Sacagawea, who was with them to guide them through to her nations where she wanted to go to.
So the mountain men were really the first Americans.
Here were the first white people coming out here. Now, Joan's here, but during this time frame, there was actually no white women that would have been out here.
Yeah.
I mean, the conditions were beyond extreme. I mean, the people then doing that, I mean, living past 30 or 40 was unheard of, really. Either the Indians got you and lifted your hair and hung it on their belt, or you'd freeze to death out there. You got hurt. I mean, unless you were good, really, really good, you're done.
But
the
Mexicans were out here at that point, or the Spanish, I should say.
The Spanish were here, but the white people basically were not here in California.
Right.
They were in the Rocky. Now, some of the guys did make it through. Jed Smith made it through, but overall, no, there wasn't very many white people out here. Not until after that period. I mean, it was the beginning of the merge to come west.
Yeah. So they were basically the groundbreakers for the pioneers who came afterwards and found the routes and figured out the geography.
And they learned, obviously, from the Native Americans quite a bit too, of a lot of their techniques to survive.
Yeah.
And with that, and they learned the tracking and the pathfinding, which actually a lot of that has become heritage within our in the U.S. Army. A lot of our scouts. Their heritage goes all the way back to the mountain men who blazed trails all across the Middle America to the west.
Wow.